and welcome to the Aces Up Your Sleep podcast. I am Sabrina.
And I'm Dr. Cade.
And we are two ASPEC autistic therapists bringing you this podcast about ASPEC and autistic experiences. And while we are therapists, this is not therapy or advice. It is what we might do if we were in your position and our thoughts on the situation. So we're here to kind of answer some questions, talk about different experiences, our thoughts on them, and how we might handle them if we were in that situation.
Yeah, or how we did handle them if we have been in that situation, like today's topic.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, today we've got two questions that are kind of similar, but we both, I think, have had to ask ourselves these things. So, well,
Yeah.
or yeah, I think that probably is true. It might not be though.
Yeah, I don't know if it's totally true for me, but definitely life is a journey and we're always figuring out more about ourselves and trying to decide why are we the way we are.
You said that, and immediately what came in my head is "Life is a Highway."
Oh, there we go.
We're just doing great musically today.
Yes.
Okay, well then let's hop in because we're kind of talking around it, and these are long questions that I want to have enough time to talk about. So
Go
the
for
first
it.
question is, am I asexual or just autistic? I'm going to highlight here, just autistic has me rolling in the aisles. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am 21 years old, and I've been struggling in dating my entire life. I've been diagnosed from a young age and had problems with intimacy and opening up to people. I used to be able to open up to both men and women, but ever since high school, when boys started to flirt with me all the time, instead of acting like a normal girl and getting complimented, I was just scared. It never passed, and I've been away from flirting and dating because it made me feel nervous, and I had several panic attacks. Oh my goodness. I only get to making out with boys, but I never felt like I wanted it, more like forced to do it. And I want to know, and I know I want a relationship where I can be open with someone and touch them, but I cannot bring myself to do anything sexual with a partner. I don't know if it's because of my autism or maybe I'm asexual, which sucks. Because I was already doomed in one part of my life, so now another. On another hand, I do hope to have sex one day, but I don't know if it's because society pushed me to it or I just want it. What are your first reactions to that?
I mean, my first thought is, as you started into the question, was like, yeah, of course you're going to have panic attacks and feel awful when you're being seen as an object by all the guys in your life. Like, that's awful, for starters. Secondly, I'm 21 years old and I've been struggling in dating my entire life. How much pressure has there been on this person to date? You know, like, even in high school, we're like 6 years or more. What? Oh my gosh, your entire life. I mean, it just stands out to me. I mean, even when they go into talking about how they're doomed because they're autistic, now are they doomed because they're ace?
Yeah, the doomed part was one of the things that like stood out. And I think too, like, I never felt like I wanted it, more like forced to do it.
Yeah.
And now it's like I want to have sex, but is it because I want to or because society is telling me I want it? Like, there seems to be a lot of not quite surety about self, which makes sense for a 21-year-old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for anybody in our society where things are like messaging is pushed, timelines and goals are pushed, expectations.
Absolutely.
Well, and I see, like, on the other hand, I do hope to have sex one day. It doesn't even sound like you really want it in this moment, you know?
Right. And it also sounds like, okay, so breaking this down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like intimacy and opening up are a challenge. And I think like quite quickly sometimes we can go into like, okay, well, that either means that I like just don't like sex or that like all of these different things, like I'm doomed, right? The kind of wording that OP has used here. But I also think that like that makes me wonder, is that true in other areas of life or is it just sexually, right? Because if there are struggles with intimacy and opening up to people in other areas of life, then it might be that you are asexual or that you're not, but also that like there is something going on that has happened in terms of how you relate to others. Maybe that's because you haven't found your community yet. Maybe that's because like you just have a hard time relating to the people around you. Like, but I would be interested and curious around how that intimacy issue shows up when it's not sexual intimacy, but relational intimacy or things like that.
Well, and the like negative self-talk that's baked into this, I want to know where that came from.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just acting like a normal girl, uh I've been struggling with dating. Like, who's saying that to you, and what does this look like, and what sort of feedback have you gotten that's led you to believe that you're doomed, for starters because you're autistic, and now because you flirt in a way that other people don't flirt, or you're nervous to flirt, or you're not interested.
Right. Well, and I
Yeah.
mean, we're sitting here and we're looking at like I only got to making out with boys, but I never felt like I wanted it more like forced to do it. So like if you feel like you were forced, like that could also be you experiencing some form of sexual trauma or something that is going to then make it harder to engage with down the road.
Yeah, if you feel like you're forced to do these things and usually the flirting led to it, then of course you're also not going to want to flirt anymore because it's been leading to these other activities. Also, it's a fair question to ask, am I asexual? Are you maybe also into women?
Mm,
Is there a chance that like men are just not for you? Maybe non-binary folks or other folks are more. I would want to get really curious around, is there some desire? And if so, where? Or have you been afraid to explore that part because of all this other stigma that's piling on this person?
yeah, and I think especially like I used to be able to open up to both men and women, but ever since high school when boys started to flirt with me all the time, right? Like there's definitely yeah, like something going on where it felt like you were comfortable opening up, and when it turned into romantic talk, when it was from like these boys, like there's a lot there that could be explored. And I think looking at it from a lens of I am doomed is going to make it hard to explore in the first place, right? Like that type of negativity is going to make it really hard for you to get the kind of genuine curiosity that would actually be helpful in this, like in answering this type of question.
Yeah. And I hear this person saying, like, I want a relationship where I can be open and touch that person, but I can't bring myself to do anything sexual. I wonder sometimes too if people get aromantic and like the asexuality
Mm,
spectrum, like if they kind of conflate the two and think,
mhm.
well, if I want a relationship, then I can't be ace, or if I want a relationship, then no one's ever going to want to date me because I don't want the sex side of it, which is not true.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think too, like, how do you feel about touch in a non-sexual or non-romantic like situation? Like, do you like to hold hands with your friends? Do you like to cuddle up with your dog? Do you like or are you super touch averse, right? Like a lot of autistic folks are just touch averse, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're sex averse, but that like touch based sexual activities are not their jam and that
Yeah,
there's actually nothing wrong with that.
absolutely. I think, you know, for this person, maybe exploring what they actually want in a vacuum, doing some envisioning of like the future. I hear them say they want a relationship, but they don't want to do anything sexual. So, what would you do with your partner?
Mhm.
And maybe even taking the gender out of it if it feels safe to kind of do a thought experiment of like, if it's not a man that I'm with, would this future look different with a woman, with a non binary person, with
Mhm.
somebody else?
Yeah, and kind of to that point, right? Like if I wasn't planning to have sex with this person, but I still wanted a romantic relationship, what would we do? If I didn't want a romantic relationship and I didn't want a sexual relationship, but I wanted a platonic relationship, what would we do? If I wanted a sexual relationship but not a romantic relationship, what like if I wanted a sexual relationship but not a touch-based relationship, like there's lots and lots of content here to get again curious with yourself. Um I really think this person's going to have a hard time until they stop viewing themselves as quote unquote abnormal or, like
Doomed.
maybe I'm asexual, which sucks because I'm already doomed. Oh my goodness. Like that is, oh, that like actually breaks my heart to read.
I mean, it really goes to show that when there's not good ace representation, when people don't know all the different ways you can be and exist on that spectrum, and that it's like people have happy, healthy lives in whatever ways they define that,
Yeah.
you feel doomed, you feel odd, you feel left out, you feel like you're letting people down. And
Yeah.
that's for sexuality stuff, like that's an awful position to be in, where you feel like if you do not engage sexually, you're letting people down. That
Yep.
guilt, can drive you to do things you regret.
Yeah, exactly. And feel forced to do, even if
Yeah.
you're not, being physically forced or like
Mm-hmm.
necessarily having force come from the other person, that can still feel coercive internally, right? Um, I think there's also like, I'm thinking of like my journey to like figuring out my place on the ace spectrum. Like, a big part of it was realizing that I could want the concept of sex and I could like think and be interested in like a lot of the idea of sex, and that like that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be the one doing it, or that I don't like
Yeah.
all parts of it, or like those types of things. That it doesn't actually mean that you are or are not asexual based on how many thoughts about sex you have.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe for our listeners it might be good to talk a little about like what does it mean to be asexual, and if you're not somewhere on the asexual spectrum, what are you?
Yeah, hit us, Dr. Cade.
Well, I mean, this question asker would say that if you're not asexual, you're quote unquote normal, but that's not true. There is no no
You're
such thing as
undoomed.
normal. Yeah. Yeah. Truly what it is if you're not asexual, you would be considered like people say it a couple different ways, but allosexual or allosexual. Essentially, you do experience sexual attraction and desire and want to act on that. It is kind of what society pushes in media as the norm, but it's
Mhm.
not actually. When you work with humans, like it's not actually the norm. There is
Mm-mm.
so much variation to libido and interest and what is attractive and what's not attractive, and everybody's so different. So to be on the asexual spectrum, obviously there are some asexual folks who are like sex repulsed. They want nothing to do with that. They don't even sometimes enjoy talking about it or hearing about it. It's
They
just
will not like this episode.
yeah, they probably have already turned this episode off. And that's okay to exist that way, obviously. But that's one way to be asexual, and I think people think that's the only way.
Mhm.
But what we know is there is so many variations of sexuality. So also on this spectrum are people who only have reciprocal desire. So if they meet you, they go, "Oh, you're great. Yes, you're a handsome or attractive person or beautiful or whatever. I don't feel anything." But the minute you start to have a crush on them, they're like, "Oh, wait a second. Suddenly something about this has sparked my desire in a way that just was not there before, and I am interested."
Oh, my reciprocal desire is so frustrating because it works even if someone has just told me you two would be a good couple.
Oh,
Yeah, like it's not even only like
that
purely
person.
reciprocal of yeah, the other person. It is like if somebody has put it in my head too strongly, that's when it starts. It's
Ah.
so frustrating.
It's like that thought prompts the
Yep.
desire. Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously there's also demisexual folks, which is talked about often. I think I'm probably in that category where I really need that emotional, mental connection with someone before I start to consider them in that way.
Mm,
Um, and some people would say, well, isn't that everyone? Doesn't everyone need an emotional connection with whoever they're attracted to? No, there are some people who would happily have one night stands with someone they met 2 minutes before, and that's okay too.
yep.
But that's not that's not a demi person.
Yeah.
and and there are so many other sexuality, there's fictosexual folks who are primarily interested in fictional characters, and that's what sparks their desire. But to have another human right there in their space with them, not so interested unless they can spark the desire from the fictional piece or there's role playing involved. There are people who are only sexually aroused when it comes to certain kinks.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot of ways to be.
Yeah, and I think, like, that's why it's a spectrum, right? Like, both autistic and asexual are both spectrums, and your experience is going to vary from every other person's, which is why, like, terms like normal get, like, so inaccurate so fast. Like, it's just so violently not like anything you could ever try to be. Um and so like at the same time as you're considering all of these like different ways to be, the goal is like open curiosity with self and not like which little box do I have to fit myself in? How am I weird? All of that kind of stuff. And instead, like, oh, like, what do I enjoy? Right. Like, as we talk about like sex, we're mostly talking about something that we do for enjoyment and pleasure. Right. And so the goal is like aiming at what things do I enjoy? If you enjoy sitting 6 feet apart in a hot tub because you're not gay, do that. Like,
Yeah,
that's the vibe. Do it.
absolutely. Yeah, so to answer that person, am I asexual or just autistic? None of us can say for you what is
Mhm.
driving all of this, but I would encourage you to reflect on and like think about all of those things we've brought up. Maybe explore how queerness feels for you, how asexuality feels for you after you have indulged in some like queer asexual culture. Like see some representation, hear some stories, and then start to form what that feels like or what your thoughts are.
And when you notice that negative self-talk coming up, recognize that
Yeah.
like that is going to be unhelpful in you figuring out your authentic self no matter what. Like no matter what area of your life, no matter what, you trying to compare into a sense of quote unquote normal, you trying to say this thing dooms me or that thing dooms me, right? Versus like, oh, I interact with the world differently. So I need to find other people who interact with the world like I do. That's technically true for every person of every neurotype, of every sexuality, of every gender. Like what we're looking for is people. Okay, I'm gonna do a little rent thing here because I've been on a real musicals kick. I love musicals. Um, but like we're all looking for baggage that goes with ours. Like that's what's happening here, right? And so just because someone might be allosexual or allistic or whatever does not mean that they are not looking for people whose baggage goes with theirs too, right? And it's also challenging. And I used to hate it when I was 21 when people would call me young, but like 21 is young. Hell, I'm still young at 29. Like there's so much more life to live and you're still in such an early part of like figuring out who you are independently and who you are authentically, and that person's also going to change as you go through the next several years of your life and then the next several years after that. And so being open to all of the different ways that you might move through the world is going to lead you to like actual genuine answers a lot better than judging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking about all the things we've just discussed leading into our next question, we might have some things to repeat, but along a similar vein, am I really asexual or is it the autism? So this person has said, I'm attracted to people, but I don't think I could be able to do anything with them because I hate people touching me or coming close to me unless I know them, but like very well. Like I trust them completely. So yes, I don't know. I'm confused. Not that anyone wants to do anything with me, but still, I'm scared for if it ever happens. I know being autistic doesn't make you ace. I meant it like because I have sensory issues. That's why I don't like sex, not because I'm not attracted to people or because I don't want to do anything sexual.
So there's not like an actual either aversion or like
Yeah.
disinterest in sex as much as there is disinterest in touch or aversion to touch.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And the nervousness for if it gets approached, what will they do?
Right. Right. Which I think like a lot of us have for a lot of different types of scenarios, but I think sex is such an intimate thing and nobody ever wants to hurt somebody's feelings by being like, "Ah, no, don't sex me." That like yeah, you can really build that up in your head really big.
Yeah, and maybe this is something to go into more on our upping the ante after dark segment because it could get explicit. But one of the generalized thoughts that comes to my mind is when you think of sex, what are you picturing?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of ways to have sex that is fulfilling for all parties involved that is not what most people usually think of, which is
Mhm.
usually a very cisgender heterosexual thought of what sex is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so a couple of things stand out to me about this one, and I know I mentioned for the last question, like, sex doesn't have to use or engage with or, like, be derived from touch. And so, like, trying to figure out, like, what things might I be interested in that don't involve being touched by another person. There's actually, what is it? I always get it wrong because it's Pillow Princess and Stone. Is
Stone
it Stone
top is what
Top?
they're calling it now.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
I always forget that second word. But like Stone Top is a identity in the kink community and in the kink world of like, don't touch me. I don't really want to be on the receiving end of anything, but I enjoy giving in some way, right? And that can mean that you feel a lot more control over the situation because you are the one doing the touching and not being touched. If you don't like doing the touching either, there are still ways that you can engage in a sexual relationship with someone if you want to. I also note that you say here, like, I I don't like people coming close to me unless I know them, but like very well, like I trust them completely. And I think that kind of goes to your point earlier about like dummy folks. Like that's a really common experience for dummy folks. Is that like we need to have that relationship before we can even consider
Yeah.
anything
Yeah,
else.
that to be, some people do find sex to be a vulnerable thing, others don't. But for those of us who do feel like it's a vulnerable thing, of course you're going to want that strong foundation of trust before you can even start to wrap your mind around what that would be like.
Yeah.
And the piece too around like I don't know what I'm going to do if that happens, like if somebody approached me for that, maybe that's a place for this person to do a little scripting, come
Yeah.
up with like what might I say if I want to kind of hit the brakes, or if I'm not close enough to that person yet, what might I say if I want to experiment but need very specific things to occur for us to feel good about that and to engage in that.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think scripting would be a great idea, both in like scripting out your words, but also scripting out like body movements and like how do I like step away from somebody who is reaching out to touch me. Would it be helpful, like I know a lot of times I like to carry a drink around with me, like when I'm in social situations that might make me more anxious. um like it is something to do with my hands. It's a good excuse. Oh, I have to pee. Look, I've been drinking all this stuff. Oh, I need to go get another one. Like it kind of gives me lots of options, and having that prop, like if you could see the video of me right now, like I'm using my hands a lot. And that's just how I talk. And I'm like fidgeting with my hair and I'm moving my body. Like that's just kind of how I move through the world. And so scripting, like, okay, I need to make sure that I have a drink with me when I go to like this event where it might be more sexual focused, or when I have this first date, or when I have this eighth date, or like whatever kind of a situation that you might be in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think figuring out what they want to do to kind of buffer that moment, because that'll decrease the fear and the worry, and then they may be more likely to put themselves out there and meet folks that they can begin to trust and build that relationship with.
Exactly. Because the stress is not helping, certainly.
No.
Um, I also, something that really strikes me is the like, am I really asexual? I hear this all the time. Like, especially for things like asexuality, but also like for bi folks, or just for folks who are starting to explore like their gender or their sexuality for the first time. Like when I'm working with, or even just like friends with people who are like starting to explore a piece of identity, we have this idea that like it's pie. And it's like, but am I really? Because if I'm not, then I don't want to say I am. And like, okay, I'm a really big proponent, and actually part of how I kind of like came into both my autistic and my asexual identity was that like I'm going to try this on. I'm going to see, like, does it feel accurate? Do I go into spaces that are made for people who are of this identity and who are exploring this identity for themselves? And do I find that this like accurately represents me and I feel seen and understood and validated? Or do I feel like, oh no, this isn't actually me? Like, got it wrong. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with exploration,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like, okay, I'm going to like not have sex, like, because that's, a totally reasonable way to try to explore a sexual identity. Or I'm going to like only have sex in very specific ways, or with people that I only trust a whole lot, and see if that feels more comfortable to me. I'm going to only have physical sex with those people, whatever. That like you can explore it without it needing to be like a definitive yes or no. We can't do a blood test on you and tell you.
No.
Like this is an internal experience, and I think it's an internal experience that is already so affected by like society's expectations. Like the other question asker who was like, is this just society telling me that I want to have sex, or do I actually want it? Like those are the types of things that you have to be able to explore and try things on and then take them back off if they don't feel right. There's not actually anything wrong with that.
Absolutely. And there's not like the asexual like SWAT team is not going to bust down your door and say, "Hey, you've actually well, we're on our main, so I won't say. You've actually done this thing, so that means you can't be asexual, or you've tried this and that, and so no, we're revoking your asexual license. It just doesn't work like that.
And we're going to put you in jail for even daring to think you could try.
Right. And there are, like, in almost any community, there are some folks in the asexual and like aspec community at large who might say, no, you're only asexual if XYZ, but that's such a small but loud percentage of the community. Most people are going to accept you in. I do not often see people getting told, like, well, you've had a child, like, you've birthed a child, you can't be in our community because we know XYZ. No, that doesn't really happen.
And if it does, that's not your person. Go find a different person. There's better people, I promise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and if you want to hear what Dr. Cade was going to say, make sure that you tune into Upping the Ante, where we'll get a little bit more explicit.
Yeah, I feel like this one's a hard one to, like, we went a little more into the topic than we might normally on this channel, but it's hard to kind of balance because it's also intertwined. So yeah, I'd encourage folks, like, join us on Patreon, hear the other stuff we've got to say. I'm hoping we'll get to share a little more about other ways to engage in sex and kind of our own stories around how did we figure out we were asexual or, on the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. As for this podcast, you can expect new episodes weekly on Tuesdays. You can find Cade at cadesharp.com, and you can find me at Radical Insights Consulting on Facebook or Instagram. And if you have questions for us, we want to hear them. We are so interested, and we want to kind of explore what we think is going on, and how we might be able to offer you some support. And so you can visit neurokink.org/AUYS, and you can send any questions or stories our way.
We're going to jump over to the Patreon now. It's our little feature segment called Upping the Ante, and we're going to definitely talk more about this topic. So if you want to catch our exclusive bonus content, head over to patreon.com/acesupyoursleevepodcast. Well, hoping we'll see you there.